Can you talk to me about what the key differences are between acting for stage and acting for screen?
I would say that the main differences are, firstly, for stage you have a live audience. So you rehearse and then you will do the play or whatever the project is in front of a group of people there to watch live as spectators. With screen work, your audience come way later after a whole post-production process. So you are in effect removed in the moment of creating the material and doing the project. You are removed from your audience. And I think it's really important for actors who have done a little bit of stage work or have trained for theatre and have gone in with that mindset and haven't done any screen work, to make sure that they don't think that the cast, the crew behind the camera are their audience, because there can be this natural gravitating towards them, which is unhelpful. And that can be stuff like, that can start affecting your voice and movement. Because if you've got like loads of crew and there's some people over there and you start sort of performing for them, which is what we don't want to do. If you start performing for them, then you take yourself out of the reality of the situation that's being created through the film. So that's really important. And remembering that we have a boom mic and radio mics that are picking you up so you can speak as quietly as you need to for the truth of the scene. I would say that's one of the major differences. Another one is that you will shoot out of sequence. So by this I mean, in the theatre you have a rehearsal period, however many weeks that would be, and that would be with the director, and maybe the writer's going to come in a few times, and the whole creative team and departments really. And you work with them through the course of 3 or 4 weeks, say, on the play from start to finish, from where it starts to where it ends, sequentially running through scenes 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 for however many acts, and then you go and perform that. And that always stays the same, that's always maintained. Now for screen acting, you will jump on set and you might be shooting your last scene first. And so you have to understand how where your character is emotionally in that place to shoot that scene. And then you might jump back to the second scene. And so actually your character hasn't experienced any of that yet and has only experienced this little bit of the storyline. So you have to then try and make sure that you remember that when you are going and filming that scene. And so that is tricky, and that requires specific training and dedication to make sure that you understand that you can be filming out of sequence, which is really important. And then also touching upon rehearsals, the other major difference is that you have rehearsals with everyone else on stage in a project for stage in the theatre, and you go through it together. You get a job on screen. You don't, very, very rarely will you get any rehearsal time before you step on set. And then, so all your preparation is by yourself. But they expect you to come with an idea, strong interpretation of the character that is aligned with what they're thinking of and step on set and deliver that, but then be adaptable to what the director says. The only time you might get a bit of rehearsal is like, I don't know, if you're a lead in a feature or something, and actually it is required that you do some rehearsals, and that's happened once to me before, that we had three weeks, I think, of rehearsals, and it was just me and the other lead rehearsing, so without any of the other supporting cast. But more often than not, you've got to think that there are no rehearsals. The only rehearsal you will get is a rehearsal for camera, which is not really for you. It's for the other departments.
In talking about what you're saying here, the key difference is, how has the training in screen acting for you supported some of your roles for film and TV?
Yeah, so I think mainly it's about craft and technique. So I trained exclusively in screen acting. My course was a screen acting course. So that's what I did, and I learned, we got put in front of a camera from day one. And so I learned really quickly about the relationship between the actor and the lens and what that means. And I think that you can use those particular skills like craft technique, like hitting your mark and sight lines, understanding your framing and what that means and how that's going to change what you do, and basically being really adaptable, because loads of things can change. Like you step on a theatre and stage and like you have the set and you've been rehearsing with it for ages and you all have your blocking, you know exactly what to do and you go and do it. You step on set and things might change all the time. It could be weather dependent as well. Mm-hmm. There could be some issues with the costume department. Your costume changes all of a sudden, or the lighting changes, or actually the director says that blocking's not working with that camera movement. So there's so many other factors at play that you need to be super adaptable when you step on set. And so my training in screen acting was influential in that. But that's kind of a technical knowledge. Now, where stage acting and screen acting is similar is that your process as an actor, understanding your character, is fundamentally the same.
Okay. And when you talk about the relationship between camera and actor, and that's part of your training, what does that mean for you, the relationship, when you've had characters that you've played in front of camera? What does that relationship mean to you when you've acted in front of camera?
So I kind of always say to students that the eyes are the windows into your soul from the camera. So when we see into your eyes, we can see into you and what you're thinking and feeling. And so I always say that the relationship is with the lens and with your eyes. So you get a lot of people that either they're very camera shy, naturally, because something's filming them. So there is this kind of wall and nervous disposition. And so generally they shy away from camera. And it's about being able to be confident enough to be vulnerable and let the camera see into you. And if you can let the camera see into you, then you draw the audience with it. So it's about kind of drawing that element to you and not being afraid of it. And that takes time. It's not something you can just get straight away. Or I think very rarely, very few people get it straight away. But it's sort of about exposing yourself in being vulnerable always, and just making sure that you're open enough to let the camera film whatever that process is that you're going through for that character, and not shying away from it.
So would you say, for someone who has no acting experience, that a screen acting training route is something they can do? Should they be doing acting before they come into screen acting, or is it something they can do from being a complete novice? Yeah,
I think from a complete novice. I don't think you have to have experience of acting training for the stage and then transitioning onto the screen. I don't think that's necessary at all. The reason being is that the idea is that you come from yourself first. And so it's actually about just being yourself in front of camera. It's about, I love it when, so I do a little exercise to get them to just recall a specific memory.
These are students that you teach,
yes,
for example?
Yeah. So the first thing, especially if they've never done anything before, it's about just relaying to another person. They don't look down the lens or anything like that, but we're filming them and they're just talking to another person about a specific event that occurred in their life that was meaningful to them. Whether that be when, they got their first dog or something as a pet, or their first school exam or something like that. Because then they can start to understand that actually everything comes from you first. And it's just about connecting your own humanity, being comfortable with that, and then transitioning and being able to relay that onto a character.
Is that where screen acting and stage acting have similarities in their approach?
I think there are loads of similarities, actually. I think there's more that is common about the two than what separates them, to be honest. And I think there's this myth of thinking that there are worlds apart, because actually they're not. For the actor, I don't think they are. Mm-hmm. In terms of understanding your character and then playing it, I think most of it is in technique. Specific camera technique, like hitting your marks and eye lines and things like that, and working with props and continuity and making sure these things are working together so that you give the editor the best options in the editing post-production process. But as an actor, it's essentially the same. The work that you'll do, the uniting the text, for example, is the same. There are various practitioners that go across the board that are useful for everything. And we studied, in screen acting, I studied everything from Michael Chekhov and psychological gesture through Meisner, Uta Hagen, method acting and Strasberg, and they all will infiltrate you and make your own toolkit, and then you can use that on stage or on screen.
So it's about finding the approach that works for you, and then how you adapt that to the medium
Yeah.
in front of you.
Yeah, absolutely.
What should someone new to screen acting expect from sort of structure of a screen acting class? I've never done it, but I'd like to, but I'm a bit nervous. What would I expect to experience in a screen acting class?
Well, I think going right back to the start, like an introduction into screen acting, for example, what someone would expect from that who's never done it before, who's maybe a bit nervous about it, is that we just start from you, from your own humanity, which is the exercise that I was talking about. Because when I say that the eyes are the windows into your soul and what you're thinking, it's about, that is true, but it's about creating strong imagination. You have to have strong imagination, because I can tell if you're not really thinking something. I can tell. The camera picks up everything. And so it's about reinforcing imagination, and to make sure that everything has that foundation and bulk of knowledge underneath it first. And so we work first with yourself. And so when you're recalling something which is a true memory, you can imagine it because you experienced it. Then we can start working with something that you haven't experienced, but you could imagine what it would be like, for example. And then you can go from there into text work. But the idea is that you're not going to start straight away jumping into text and jumping into doing a monologue or a duologue or improvise this character now. Because we haven't done the foundation work. So that's what it would start with, and building a sense of being comfortable in front of camera first, of opening up imagination and vulnerability as well. I think that's super important. And then translate that onto text rather than jump forward to that. And then after that, after we've explored imagination, after we've explored how that is useful and the fundamental tool for transposing onto any script you might get given, then we start working on craft and what it means for you to be in a two-shot or a close-up, or if the camera's moving and how that will affect you, or working with props or something like that.
What do you love most about teaching screen acting?
So everyone's different. Everyone has something that they're great at and something that they find very difficult and requires a bit more work. So I love the challenge of working out who needs what, essentially, because everyone is different. And something might be useful, one particular way of working or methodology may be really useful for someone, and they understand it and they can run with that and use it. And for someone else, they might find it impossible. Like, for example, it happened to me in drama school loads. Like, we had sort of a throw as much mud at the wall and hope some of it will stick kind of training. So we were just like jumping around all different practitioners, and Michael Chekhov was like, I hate this, I don't understand psychological gesture, I think it's rubbish, I don't understand why you would do it, I want to do it only this way, I only like this way. And then it was only years down the line that I realised, it just fell in when I was doing a job, and I was like, oh, that's what it was about, that's what it meant. So I think what I love most about it is what have I learned throughout not only my training but also my experience doing projects, because you learn so much on each project, and how something could be really useful for one person but something completely different might be able to inspire someone else.
Yeah. What if someone's thinking, they'd quite like to seriously think about getting into the sort of film or TV industry? What kind of route would you suggest that they take? What should be their avenue of training?
I think it's really important to say, first of all, that there is no one golden rule. Yeah. There's no one route. There's no one path that everyone should take. It's different for everyone. I think essentially, if you want to start auditioning for screen work, you need a show reel. That's essential. So, and good headshots, but you need a show reel because people need to be able to see what you do on camera. And which is why I do the professional show reel package, because it's really important that people have a product that they can go to a casting director and go, this is me, this is what I can do. So I think that is one whatever avenue you go to get your show reel is very, very important that you at least end up there, however that works out. And I would say that you should always start, especially if you haven't done any screen work before, you should always start with a foundation introductory level and then build it up. And then you start building up the craft and the technique for camera before jumping something to like, right, I need a show reel and I'm going to do these scenes. Because if you don't have the necessary technique or it's not finessed enough, then you're going to suffer when you come to actually film things. But I would say show reel is almost like the number one most important thing.
What are the key things that someone should look to achieve when filming their show reel?
Okay, yeah, great question. I think, so a show reel essentially should be comprised of different scenes, 2, 3, 4 different scenes that show your casting brackets.
Right. What do you mean by that?
So it's certain types of character that you think that you would fit in the industry. For example, like you may say, okay, I feel like I would go up for a lot of soldier roles or police officer, which is what I do go up for a lot of those roles. So it's quite important to get something active and dynamic in my show reel. And then there could be something else where it's actually, no, I'm more this or I'm more that. But what you want to do is create the range. This is what I can be cast in. This is what I think my casting type is like. But within that there's a good variation of different characters. And also accents help as well. Like if you've got a good general American accent as well, that's always good. Maybe a regional dialect as well. But you're not trying to be someone who can say, I can play every part. Yeah. Because no one can. So apart from Daniel Day-Lewis.
Know your casting type.
Know your casting type. Yeah, absolutely. Ask friends, ask people who are actors as well. If
over the years anyone's given you advice or tips or direction when you've been working professionally, is there any one particular piece of advice that you've taken away that you share when you teach or that you hold true when you work? Yeah, I think there's 3 particular moments that stood out the most to me. So the first 2 were on the first professional TV job I did way back when. So I was doing the first series of Call the Midwife, and I was really excited, but I was very nervous, and it was like quite a big set and stuff like this. So I got on set, and the first thing I had to do, which coincidentally was the first scene in that episode, was I had to just run down the street because my wife was having a baby and go to the telephone box and say, call the midwife to come over, literally call the midwife. And so it was like, okay, I was ready, I was really excited and I was ready. I was like, right, I'm going to run down the street, and it was action. And I went out the door, I bolted down the street, like literally as fast as I could, sprinting down the street, almost fell over, into the telephone box, blah, 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 cut, excellent. Director comes up to me and says, that was really good, that was great, we're going to do it again. I went, okay then. And he said, so this time you ran so fast. And I was like, oh yeah, but I thought I'm sprinting down because you're having a baby. She's like, no, you are, but the camera can't keep up with you because we're on a dolly track, we're trying to track you. So basically, put the same amount of energy into it, look like you're running really fast, but only jog. I was like, oh, that's really weird. And you have to remember that for camera, is that you have something between the audience's eye and the reality of what's going on. Like on stage, you could run as fast as you like across the stage if that's what needs to happen, because the audience can follow you right there and then live. But the camera is the bit in between, and it won't be able to pick you up. So that was number 1. Number 2 is I did a scene, again, I think it was on the same day, so I was like learning loads. And he said, I did a scene, he was like, great, yeah. And he came up to me, I think he was really nice because he knew it was my first professional job as well. So he was kind of like easing me through the whole process. And he said, when I say action, don't feel like you need to act. Don't feel like you need to do anything. If someone says action, you need to jump in. Oh, right, yes, okay, I'm going to do this, this and that. No, you don't need to do that at all. And that's really important because stillness is really important on camera. And then the third thing that I learned that sticks out in my memory, I learned so much throughout various projects, was the most recent one I've done, which was on a film.
And I was doing this complicated scene where there's a lot of action involved as well, and I was speaking French, which I don't speak, so I had to learn the line. I had to just get a French tutor and help me learn the lines and speak French effectively. But I had to like grab him and say some dialogue, then pull him towards me, take my hat off, and headbutt him, and then it goes into this massive brawl. And we did the first take, and it was quite hectic. And he said, "Okay, we can do it again. We'll do it again, but let's do it as though it's act by numbers." I said, "What do you mean?" And he was like, "So we're going to do number 1, you turn to him. Number 2, you grab him. Number 3, you pull him towards you. Number 4, you say the line. Number 5, he says his line to you. Number 6, you react, take your hat off. Number 7, you smile. Number 8, you headbutt. And then you do the fight." And I was like, okay. And what that really taught me was there was this whole process of like the journey of from start to finish, even though that actual section was very short, that journey was massive because there was so much going on there. And if you just break it down and make it really simple, then it works better than if you try and do everything at once. I think they were just the 3 things that are quite like basically practical advice. Mm-hmm. Don't move so quickly. You don't need to move so quickly. You don't have to do stuff when action is called. And just to break it down bit by bit by bit, if it's a really complicated scene, is important because then you're hitting each beat, which is really important. You must hit each beat on camera. Otherwise, it all just becomes this like melee of nothingness, and everything is a general wash, and we don't get the specific detail that we need to get for camera.
What do you admire most in a great screen actor?
A great screen actor, presence, the ability to just sit or stand there or to be there without looking like they're doing anything. I think it's incredible where someone has the ease and charisma of presence, that they can be there and we are automatically drawn into them. So like the greats like Brando and Day-Lewis, and Anthony Hopkins and Ian McKellen, and all of those have this unbelievable, and Meryl Streep as well, have this incredible presence about them. But the reason they have that presence, I believe, is that there is so much invested underneath. Because you can't step on set having done no groundwork and done your research and done your character research. You can't step on set and give a great performance without that. Like Bryan Cranston says it in his autobiography, that for Breaking Bad and Walter White, the amount of research and the effort that went into fleshing out this character in his own head before he even steps on set was monumental. Mm-hmm. And I think that you can stand there and just be as the person, the character you need to be, but you have to have the wealth of knowledge behind that to support it. Otherwise, it's like building a house without the foundation being there. Like, it'll just crumble, it'll fall, because you're trying to fake it. And on camera, that's tricky because the camera just sees everything.
That's great. Thank you very much for taking the time, Tom, to give us an insight into what it is that you love about screen acting.
Thank you.
Thank you.